Good day, dear students, and now we come to the real crux of the matter, of the core of the course. From now onwards, we are going to actually compare different administrative systems prevalent in different countries. Till now, we had been looking at all those concepts which are relevant to the running of any administrative system, all those generic issues and areas which are of vital importance to governance. And as a sequel to that, we are now going to focus on actual administrative systems and see how they function. What are the major kind of administrative systems in vogue all over the world? What are their major differences? What kind of efficiency, effectiveness, and service delivery levels have they attained? And in this connection, we'll be looking at least at 4 or 5 countries. These would include the US, the UK, France, and Japan. Selection of these 4 countries has been made on the basis of the fact that they represent distinct forms of administrative systems which differ from each other in many a respect. And we would also, of course, look at the Pakistani administrative system. As we have been progressing through the course, we have been citing examples of the Pakistani administrative system because it is very much there, it is relevant to us. We know quite a bit about it, even as citizens. We may not be students of public administration. We may not know that discipline at all. We may not even know the name of that discipline. But as citizens of the country, we do know which organs of the state exist and which organ is performing in what manner. So, after discussing these 4 major, distinct administrative systems, we'll again come down to our own country and have a much closer look at how the administrative system performs in Pakistan. हम 4 मुमालिक के एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सिस्टम्स को एग्जामिन करेंगे और उनका तकाबला करेंगे, और वो मुमालिक हैं अमेरिका, बरतानिया, फ्रांस और जापान। ये मुमालिक इसलिए हमने सिलेक्ट किए हैं कि इनके जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सिस्टम्स हैं एक दूसरे से खासे मुख्तलिफ हैं, और हम इनके जो डिफरेंसेस हैं उनको अच्छी तरह एग्जामिन करेंगे और ये भी देखेंगे कि इन एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सिस्टम्स ने कैसा परफॉर्म किया है या कैसा परफॉर्म कर रहे हैं. So from now onwards, we would be taking each of these administrative systems one by one and in detail, and a number of lectures will be devoted to each of the administrative systems I have mentioned, so that we can really have a closer look at them. And of course, whenever we are looking at other administrative systems, साथ-साथ हम पाकिस्तानी एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सिस्टम का भी तकाबली जायजा करते जाएंगे. और अगर टाइम मिला तो वी मे ऑल्सो लुक एट द इंडियन एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सिस्टम. वो इसलिए कि पाकिस्तान और हिंदुस्तान में वो एक कॉलोनियल टाइप ऑफ ब्यूरोक्रेसी जो अंग्रेज से हमने इनहेरिट की, उसकी ही तकरीबन एक जैसी फॉर्म्स चल रही हैं। हाँ, ये अलग बात है कि इंडिया a large democracy with more or less continuous democratic process will have a slightly different bureaucratic idiosyncrasies and trends. और हमारे यहाँ क्योंकि डिसकंटिन्यूटी रही है डेमोक्रेसी में, तो शायद हमारी ब्यूरोक्रेसी, हालांकि रूट्स वही हैं ब्रिटिश एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सिस्टम की, जो उन्होंने थोड़ा सा चेंज करके इंडियन सब कॉन्टिनेंट में इंट्रोड्यूस किया था, रूट्स वही हैं, लेकिन दोनों ममालिक में ब्यूरोक्रेसीज ने थोड़ा सा डिफरेंटली प्रोग्रेस किया है और डेवलप किया है। तो हो सकता है अगर वक्त मिला तो हम इंडियन ब्यूरोक्रेटिक सिस्टम को भी एग्जामिन करें और देखें कि वो कहां खड़े हैं और हम कहां खड़े हैं। And no discussion of an administrative system can be in a vacuum as far as politics is concerned or the political system is concerned. We do know that there is this whole discipline of comparative political systems, and without studying the political system of a country, we really can't appreciate, we really can't properly analyze the administrative system of that country. As such, in our discussions devoted to each country, we'll be looking at the political aspects, starting right from the Constitution. So we start off with the American Constitution. We know immediately after independence in 1789, the American Constitution came into being. This is in fact the first written constitution which any country ever had. So it is the oldest written constitution. सबसे पुरानी constitution जो लिखी हुई है, of course, ब्रिटेन की पुरानी constitution है सबसे, लेकिन that is an unwritten constitution. Very interesting, unwritten constitution. बहरहाल अमेरिकन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन सिर्फ 12 पेजेस की है और उसमें 27 अमेंडमेंट्स भी शामिल हैं, कुछ स्केड्यूल्स भी शामिल हैं, कुछ डिवीजन ऑफ पावर की लिस्ट भी शामिल हैं कि कौन से सब्जेक्ट स्टेट करेगा और कौन से सब्जेक्ट्स फेडरेशन करेगी और रेजिडुअरी पावर्स किसके पास होंगी. But the main body of the constitution is only 12 pages. And we don't know that we have a very ambitious constitution with, I don't know, at least 50 pages. अब एक खासियत जो अमेरिकन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की है वो ये है कि इट इज अ रिजिड कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. फ्लेक्सिबल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन उसको कहा जाता है जो आसानी से अमेंड की जा सके, और रिजिड कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन वो होती है जिसको अमेंड करना खासा मुश्किल हो. Of course, amendments have to be brought in by the legislatures. No one else is empowered to do so. तो अमेरिकन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में अगर आपने कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को अमेंड करना है तो आपको दोनों हाउसेस के, यानी लोअर हाउस, अपर हाउस, lower house is the House of Representatives, upper house is the Senate, and together they make up the Congress. So 2/3 votes of both houses are required. And not only this, but because it is a federation, so the states also have a stake. Because many of the functions which are being performed by the federation affect the citizens in the states. So there is a requirement also that this constitution, any constitutional amendment, be ratified by 75% of the state legislatures. This is an important requirement. So in order to amend the Constitution, you have to satisfy a majority of both, a big majority of both representatives of the Congress and those of the state legislatures. और ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन जो है फेडरेशन एनविसिज करती है, एंड अगेन it has the distinction of being the first and oldest of its kind, where units federate together, where states federate together to become a nation. So I previously mentioned about the powers conferred in the Constitution upon the Federation and upon the states. There are certain things, certain subjects, certain powers which can only be exercised by the Federation, and certain powers which are exclusive to the states. However, whatever subjects are not covered by these two lists are called residuary powers, and they reside with the states. So the states will enact upon or legislate upon and will implement those enactments vis-a-vis any subjects which are not covered in the legislative lists of the federation or of the state. That is the concept of residuary powers. यानी ऐसे मौज़ूआत, ऐसे सब्जेक्ट्स जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ने तफवीज़ नहीं किए ना स्टेट को और ना ही फेडरेशन को, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के मुताबिक उन पर कंट्रोल होगा स्टेट का, यानी उन सब्जेक्ट्स को पे स्टेट ही लेजिस्लेट करेगी, फेडरेशन नहीं करेगी. सो वी सी देयर इज दिस immense amount of autonomy found in the American Constitution as far as the relationships between the federation and the state are concerned. क्योंकि आपको अमेंडमेंट करनी है तब भी अपनी रेटिफिकेशन 3/4 ऑफ द स्टेट से करवानी है, और अगर आपने ऐसे कोई सब्जेक्ट्स हैं जो उस वक्त कवर नहीं किए, डिवाइड नहीं किए कि ये स्टेट की पावर है और ये फेडरेशन की पावर है, तो वो स्टेट को चले जाते हैं. सो quite a bit of autonomy there for the states, which is really good. A federation should be based generally on autonomy. Then only it is supposed to work rationally and effectively. Now the system of the government. In the United States, it is a presidential form of government. It's not a parliamentary, in that sense, form of government. Because here, we don't have a separate head of the state and a separate head of the government. Both the powers as head of state and as head of the government are vested in the president. इसलिए कई दफ़ा कहा जाता है कि perhaps the president of US is the most powerful person in the world. पूरी दुनिया का सबसे powerful individual, single person अगर कोई है तो वो US का president है, क्योंकि उसके पास हेड ऑफ स्टेट की भी पावर्स हैं और हेड ऑफ गवर्नमेंट की भी हैं, और वैसे भी उसको इतनी पावर्स दे दी गई हैं कि यू कैन कंसिडर हिम अ रियल चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव. ही कैन चेंज थिंग्स, ही कैन मूव थिंग्स, ही कैन सेट पॉलिसीज. बट ऑफ कोर्स वील सी लेटर दैट देयर इज दिस कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ चेक्स एंड बैलेंसेस आल्सो ingrained in the constitution of the USA. तो जो चीफ जो प्रेसिडेंट है वो इलेक्ट होता है 4 साल की मुद्दत के लिए। और तरीकाकार क्या है इलेक्शन का? इन अ वे इट्स अ डायरेक्ट इलेक्शन, कि आप पहले वो लोग इलेक्ट करते हो जिन्होंने प्रेसिडेंट को इलेक्ट करना है, हाउसेस ने नहीं करना। उसको कहते हैं इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज। We'll look at this concept a little bit more later. अब जैसे प्राइम मिनिस्टर कैबिनेट बनाता है, इसी तरह प्रेसिडेंशियल सिस्टम में प्रेसिडेंट अपना कैबिनेट बनाता है। लेकिन कहते हैं कि सबसे ज्यादा डिसीजन मेकिंग और पॉलिसी मेकिंग जो होती है वो चंद लोगों के साथ ही प्रेसिडेंट कंसल्ट करके करता है, और उसको वो कहते हैं अमेरिकन टर्मिनोलॉजी में किचन कैबिनेट। इन अदर वर्ड्स, there would be a few people who could even fit into a kitchen, or maybe you are having your nice tea in the kitchen and making policy decisions. You know, the concept goes like that. और अगर प्रेसिडेंट को आपने बरतरफ करना है तो उसका तरीकाकार भी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में वज़ा किया गया है। This concept is called impeachment. The President of the United States can be impeached. That might be for very, very serious reasons of financial or moral turpitude. Or if he were to go insane or something, that is another eventuality, but never happened in the history of the USA. So there is a laid down procedure of how impeachment would be done and how many votes have to be cast by the houses, and what kind of relief is available to the president while facing impeachment proceedings. Another very interesting thing which makes the president of US very powerful is that he is not responsible to the Congress. Unlike the parliamentary system, where there is this responsibility of the Prime Minister and his cabinet to the Parliament, that kind of direct responsibility for actions is not present in the presidential system of the UK. इसकी वजह से हम कह सकते हैं कि प्रेसिडेंट और पावरफुल हो जाता है, क्योंकि उसके ऊपर कोई डायरेक्ट कंट्रोल या उसकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी कांग्रेस को उसने अपने एक्शंस की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी एक्सप्लेन करने की जरूरत नहीं। सो वी आर लुकिंग एट अ सिस्टम वेयर वन इंडिविजुअल is extremely powerful, and fortunately or unfortunately that happens to be the superpower at the moment and has been for quite some time. Now we of course know that there are always 3 main branches of the government, और वो होती हैं legislative, यानी हमारे यहाँ जो पार्लियामेंट है, अमेरिका में जिसको आप कांग्रेस कहते हैं, पार्लियामेंट में हमारी नेशनल असेंबली और सेनेट शामिल हो जाती हैं, ये दोनों मिलकर पार्लियामेंट होती है। और कांग्रेस इन केस ऑफ द यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स उसको कहते हैं, यानी प्रेसिडेंशियल सिस्टम में यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स के जिसको हम पार्लियामेंट कहते हैं कांग्रेस कहा जाता है। And Congress comprises again of both the houses, the lower house of representatives and the upper house, which is the Senate. And of course, we do know that in case of the US, Senate is the more powerful house. They have a lot of functions to perform. They spearhead the check and balances concept. as far as the legislature goes in the American setup. Then we have the executive. Executive would refer to the president and perhaps to his team, his ministers or his specially appointed personnel. And as we saw before, कि निहायत powerful president होता है United States का. And then the third arm of the government is the judiciary, the judicial government. Judiciary comprises of the Supreme Court and the lower courts, the inferior courts they call it, as they call it in the US. So you have these three arms of the government: the legislative arm, the executive arm, and the judicial arm. They are supposed to do their own work. Legislation is the work of the Congress. All state affairs, government affairs are the work of the president. And education on all matters, interpretation of the Constitution in constitutional matters is the primary work of the judiciary. So, जो भी काम है इन तीनों organs के, वो बिल्कुल distinct, separate और laid out है in the American Constitution. इसको हम कहते हैं separation of powers. यानी अगर एग्जीक्यूटिव कहीं कोई गलत काम कर रहा है तो उस पर जुडिशरी एक्शन ले सकती है. एग्जीक्यूटिव खुद नहीं लेता उस पर एक्शन. ये पावर्स की सेपरेशन है. जहां जुडिशियल मैटर आ जाएगा जुडिशरी आ जाएगी. एग्जीक्यूटिव मैटर है एग्जीक्यूटिव करेगी. आपने स्टैट्यूट्स बनाने हैं, बिल्स पास करने हैं, एनेक्टमेंट करनी है, लॉज बनाने हैं, सबऑर्डिनेट लॉज बनाने हैं, तो यू हैव द लेजिस्लेचर. अब वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ चेक्स एंड बैलेंसेस. This is a very, very peculiar aspect of the Constitution of the US. A very interesting one and a very positive one, which is called the checks and balances system. यानी ये जो separation of power है, तीन आपने organs को powerful कर दिए, अब इनको within control कैसे रखना है आपने? कोई एक्सेसिव ना हो जाए, कोई आउट ऑफ लिमिट्स ना चला जाए, ये आप कैसे इंश्योर करेंगे? उसके लिए अमेरिकन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में चेक्स एंड बैलेंसेस का सिस्टम रखा गया. अब वो क्या है? ऑफ कोर्स इट इंश्योर्स नो ऑर्गन ऑफ गवर्नमेंट बिकम्स ऑटोक्रेटिक. जो मर्जी है कर दो, ये नहीं हो सकता. So partial control or indirect control or control in some ways on certain things has been provided in the Constitution over each organ of the state so that it does not act beyond proportions, out of proportion. How does that happen? For example, if Congress has passed a bill, the President can overrule it. He may or may not assent to it, because once a bill has been passed by the two houses, it has to go to the President for assent. So there is this concept of veto. He can just say no. And then The bill goes into the waste paper basket. Wherever then the executive is feeling that Congress is going contrary to certain things, the president can veto the bill. इसी तरह सेनेट का अपना रोल एक आ गया, प्रेसिडेंट के ऊपर एक चेक और बैलेंस आ गया. मेजर अपॉइंटमेंट सारी जो है अमेरिकन सिस्टम में प्रेसिडेंट करता है, बट दे हैव टू बी कंफर्म्ड बाय द सेनेट. All key posts, even the appointment of judges of the Supreme Court, the highest judiciary, has to be approved by the Senate. And we do know about these hearings in the Senate which are held, and the person who's going to be appointed to a key post is exposed before members of the Senate to question and decide whether he or she is fit for that key post. So the appointment by the president is subject to confirmation by the Senate. This gives the Senate a lot of power. So as we said that the upper house is powerful, Senate is much more powerful than the lower house. So we see that Senate has this sword hanging over the president. Okay, we can or cannot confirm what you propose. ये बहुत बड़ा एक वेपन है सेनेट के हाथ में प्रेसिडेंट को कंट्रोल करने के लिए कि वो किस किस्म के अपॉइंटमेंट्स कर रहा है. वो बड़ा परखते हैं उन लोगों को जिनके नाम प्रेसिडेंट भिजवाता है फॉर कंफर्मेशन. तो प्रेसिडेंट बिल्स को उनके वो वीटो कर सकता है और वो प्रेसिडेंट की नॉमिनीज को नो कह सकते हैं. As we said before, President appoints the judges with the consent of the Senate. So in a way, there is also a check and balance on the judiciary by the Senate, because ultimately it is the Senate which is going to prevail in matters of appointment of judges. तो अब हम देख रहे हैं कि सेनेट का एक रोल जो है प्रेसिडेंट को कंट्रोल करने का, चेक करने का है, और एक रोल जो है जुडिशरी को इंश्योर करने का है कि उसमें सही बंदे जाए. अब सुप्रीम कोर्ट की एक बहुत बड़ी पावर होती है और वो ये होती है, तकरीबन हर मुल्क में सुप्रीम कोर्ट जो है, इट कैन डिक्लेयर एनीथिंग which is not according to law or according to constitution as ultra virus of the constitution, not in keeping with the constitution, as opposed to the spirit of the constitution. तो ये एक बहुत बड़ा powerful weapon है with the Supreme Court to be able to say, well, this law passed by you is not in keeping with the Constitution, so we are striking it down. और चेक्स एंड बैलेंसेस जो हैं, इनकी वजह से एक ख़ास किस्म की सिस्टम में आप कह सकते हैं ख़ास किस्म की स्मूथ रनिंग की चांसेस बहुत उजागर हो जाते हैं. द सिस्टम विल रन मच बेटर and not autocratically because of these checks and balances. वही जो बात पहले हम कर रहे थे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल सुप्रीमेसी की, क्योंकि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन हमेशा सुप्रा लॉ समझा जाता है, द हाईएस्ट लॉ ऑफ द लैंड एंड द फंडामेंटल लॉ, बिकॉज ऑल अदर laws, the subordinate laws, have to be in keeping with the Constitution. कोई भी आप अपने मुल्क में, किसी भी मुल्क में कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से मारवा मुहावरा है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, कोई आप लॉ एनेक्ट नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि कोई भी जाके उसको चैलेंज कर देगा कोर्ट्स में और कोर्ट्स कहेंगे दिस इज अल्ट्रा वायरस ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। अच्छा, इस जमन में एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग कॉन्सेप्ट जिसका नाम जुडिशियल रिव्यू दिया गया है यूएस में, वो जन्म में आया। सो एज वी सेड, laws enacted by Congress have to be in keeping with the spirit of the Constitution, and if they are not, Supreme Court can exercise powers of judicial review and declare certain enactments as ultra virus if found to be against the provisions of the Constitution. यानी अगर ऐसे लॉज को इनेक्ट किए जाते हैं जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से मुताबिकत नहीं रखते या उसके स्पिरिट के मुताबिक नहीं है, तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट अपनी पावर्स जुडिशियल रिव्यू की एक्सरसाइज करते हुए उनको स्ट्राइक डाउन कर सकते। एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग चीज अमेरिकन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के बारे में कि इट इनकॉर्पोरेट्स अ बिल ऑफ राइट्स। कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का एक हिस्सा ये बताता है कि शहरियों की क्या क्या फ्रीडम्स हैं, उनकी राइट्स क्या है। ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का पार्ट है, दिस बिल ऑफ राइट्स। एंड व्हाट डज इट डू? Rights guaranteed to populace impose restrictions on authority of the government. These rights are vis-a-vis the powers and their exercise by the government. यानी गवर्नमेंट जो पावर्स हैं उसके पास वो एक्सरसाइज करती है तो किस तरीके से करती है? क्या वो हर एक को पकड़ के जेल में बंद कर सकती है? क्या वो लोगों के लैंड को एक्वायर कर सकती है? यानी जो पावर्स गवर्नमेंट में वेस्टेड है वो कर्टेल हो जाती हैं बिल ऑफ राइट्स के बेसिक असूलों की वजह से। और वो क्या है? अकॉर्डिंग टू बिल ऑफ राइट्स, नो पर्सन इज टू बी डिप्राइव्ड ऑफ लाइफ, लिबर्टी एंड प्रॉपर्टी विदाउट ड्यू प्रोसेस ऑफ लॉ। यानी ना आप किसी को उसकी जिंदगी से खेल सकते हैं या उसकी लिबर्टी से उसको जेल में बंद कर सकते हैं, ना उसकी आप प्रॉपर्टी ले सकते हैं जब तक एक पर्टिकुलर तरीकाकार जो लॉ में लेट डाउन है वो आपने फॉलो नहीं किया। This is very important and has been really a keystone as far as the rights of freedom of the people in US are concerned. It is generally said that it is due to the Bill of Rights that there is so much freedom in the United States. और फिर जुडिशियल रिव्यू का यहां भी कॉन्सेप्ट आ जाता है कि the Supreme Court protects all these rights enshrined in the Bill of Rights through judicial review. यानी अगर हुकूमत कोई ऐसा फैसला करती है जो लोगों की लाइफ को इम्पैक्ट करता है, लोगों की प्रॉपर्टी को इम्पैक्ट करता है या उनकी फ्रीडम को इम्पैक्ट करता है, तो the Supreme Court can take cognizance of the issue that this is negatively impacting these rights protected in the Bill of Rights, and as such, through that same concept of judicial review, strike down those orders or those laws. सो बिल ऑफ राइट्स एक ऐसा डॉक्यूमेंट है जिसने एक किस्म का अमेरिका की कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को 4 चांद लगा दिए. आउटस्टैंडिंग दैट यू आर क्लियरली writing down that these things have to be protected and giving powers to the Supreme Court to be able to protect them in very clearly. Bicameralism, ये टर्म आमतौर पे इस्तेमाल होती है जब आप बात कर रहे हैं अपर और लोअर हाउसेस की या द नंबर ऑफ हाउसेस इन अ डेमोक्रेटिक सिस्टम. The American federal legislature comprises of the Senate, that is the upper house we talked about, and we said that it had a lot of power compared to the lower house, which is the House of Representatives, because it is not the House of Representatives which has so much control over the president's doing, it is the Senate. So in all appointments, as we said, it is the Senate which is going to confirm them or concur with the president as to who should be appointed on which key post. अब सेनेट की कॉम्पोजिशन क्या है? इसके 100 मेंबर होते हैं. अगर 50 स्टेट्स हैं तो 2 फ्रॉम ईच मेंबर, वही जैसे हमारे यहाँ है. फेडरेटिंग यूनिट्स जो हैं उनकी इक्वल रिप्रेजेंटेशन है फ्रॉम ईच फेडरेटिंग यूनिट. हमारे यहाँ इसी तरह अमेरिका का हालांकि प्रेसिडेंशियल सिस्टम है, लेकिन अपर हाउस की जो कॉम्पोजिशन है वो उसी असूल पे है. यू गॉट टू हैव एन इक्वल नंबर ऑफ पीपल फ्रॉम ईच फेडरेटिंग यूनिट. तो हमारा सेनेट उन्हीं लाइंस पे बना हुआ है, उसी स्पिरिट को फॉलो कर रहा है. और अमेरिका में 100 मेंबर्स होते हैं, 50 स्टेट 100 मेंबर हो गए. दे आर इलेक्टेड फॉर अ टर्म ऑफ 6 years. 6 साल के लिए वो इलेक्ट होते हैं. एंड वी नो कि कंटिन्यूटी रहती है सेनेट में बिकॉज इलेक्शंस आर हेल्ड एट डिफरेंट टाइम्स. वेयर इज द हाउस ऑफ रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स इज मच बिगर. It's interesting that it's called the House of Representatives, but it has much less powers than the Senate. और इसके 435 मेंबर्स होते हैं और इनकी सिर्फ 2 साल की टर्म है. अब प्रेसिडेंट का इलेक्शन कैसे होता है? ये इनडायरेक्ट इन द सेंस है कि वही इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज ने करना है और इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज के 538 मेंबर होते हैं. एंड इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज इज कंप्राइज्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टली elected members by each state, और उतने ही मेंबर्स ये इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज के होते हैं जितने कि एक्चुअल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव हैं उसके हाउस ऑफ रिप्रेजेंटेटिव में हर स्टेट के. और इसी तरह जितने लोग सेनेट के हैं हर स्टेट से, उसी हिसाब से यानी 2-2 हर स्टेट से वो आ जाएंगे. तो इस तरह हाउस ऑफ रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स के 437 जो मेंबर्स हैं प्लस 100 उसके 537 बन जाएंगे. डीसी के आप डाल लें 3 मेंबर्स, तो ये टोटल जो है एन इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज ऑफ 538 मेंबर्स हो जाता है. अब जीतने के लिए यू रिक्वायर अ सिंपल मेजॉरिटी और 1 प्लस सिंपल मेजॉरिटी. तो गोया आपको प्रेसिडेंट को जीतने के लिए 270 वोट्स दरकार हैं इस इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज से. Out of the 538 members of the electoral college, the president has to secure a majority plus one vote to be elected. So he would require 270 votes to be elected. So this is the process of the election of the president. अब प्रेसिडेंट बनने के लिए रिक्वायरमेंट्स क्या हैं? आपको अमेरिका का में बॉर्न होना चाहिए. यू हैव टू बी अ यूएस बॉर्न सिटीजन. अगर आपके वालिदैन बाहर से आए थे और आप वहां पैदा हुए अमेरिका में, यू आर एलिजिबल. बट इफ यू हैव इमिग्रेटेड टू द यूएस एंड have become a so-called naturalized citizen of the US. यानी आप वहां पैदा नहीं हुए, पैदा कहीं और हुए, लेकिन जब आपने वहां जाके रहना शुरू किया, काम करना शुरू किया, आपको सिटीजनशिप मिल गई. तो that is what we call a naturalized citizen of that country. The naturalized citizens of US are not qualified to become the president of the country. और एज मिनिमम एज रिक्वायरमेंट जो है वो 35 साल है. और फिर एक और जो बीच में रिस्ट्रिक्शन लगा दी गई वो ये है कि भले आप पैदा हुए हो यूएस में, तो क्या आप रहते भी यूएस में रहे हैं? So the restriction is that you should have stayed or resided permanently for at least 14 years in the US. But this is not in consecutive terms. You may have resided at different times, but the total should add up to 14 years. And the president has a fixed tenure of 4 years. He can only be elected twice. You would remember, very interesting, in our country we had a similar provision. But then, due to certain political adjustments which were underway, third time elected presidents are possible now after the new amendments. And he can, of course, be separated from the office through impeachment proceedings only. अब इसकी powers and functions देखें, is so-called most strong or the strongest person in the world. Like anywhere else, he is supposed to enforce the constitution and the other laws and judicial decisions. It is the responsibility of the president to ensure that all judicial decisions are carried out, that all laws are implemented, that constitution is followed. He is also the supreme commander of US forces. और देखें, US forces छोटी सी नहीं है, huge. Perhaps the biggest military strength in the world. So he is the commander of all that. Then he makes all those key appointments within and without the country related to the US. He appoints the Supreme Court judges, ambassadors to other countries, and heads of departments of all the government departments. And of course, other organizations. We'll look at it a little later, what kind of organizations are available and exist in the US administrative system. He assents to bills, and we saw that he can also veto a bill. He formulates US foreign policy. बहुत important. Yani, the onus of carrying out, formulating and carrying out also, because he would be appointing the Secretary of State and all the foreign affairs people. the onus of formulating the foreign policy and implementing it, the foreign policy of this superpower, is on the President. Of course, he makes rules and regulations which again are in accordance with the law or in accordance with the Constitution to implement things. And very important, and again, congressional control comes in here, because the budget has to be passed both by the National Assembly and the Senate. So he prepares and submits the national budget to the Congress. Extremely important. The finances of this superpower. He is going to ensure that a good budget is prepared. Of course, we have been seeing these large deficit budgets and lots of loan of the United States mounting up every minute. But then it is the responsibility of the President of the US to come up with a good balanced budget. May not happen. And what does the office of the President comprise of? It has the following staff agencies: the White House, then an Office of Management and Budget, then a Council of Economic Advisors, and the National Security Council. So we know the White House is that small but regal building where he resides and also has his office. He meets dignitaries there. He meets his kitchen cabinet there and does a lot of work, hopefully. And then there is the Office of Management and Budget, because as we saw, it was one of the primary duties of the President, the whole budget making process. So he requires some such staff agency to look into the budget of this great country and prepare it. And then a Council of Economic Advisors. Now we are talking about economy. So he'll have a few advisors who will give him some idea as to how to steer the economy in a proper manner. The Office of the President also comprises of the National Security Council. Now we are talking about security, before we were talking about economy. And this National Security Council has become even more important these days because of various reasons we all know about. The kind of wars which are going on and have been going on, with the United States intervening in so many countries, and this aspect of terrorism. So we saw that another organization called the Homeland Security was established, and all such changes, proposals come out of the National Security Council. Although we know that the concept of National Security Council in our country has always been a question mark and controversial at times. More organs of the Office of the President. So look at the Office of the President. It's very well organized, with different organs, different offices looking after those aspects which are critical to the functioning of a state. So there is the office of the US Trade Representative. Again, trade very important in this time. आजकल इकोनॉमी और ट्रेड जितना इम्पोर्टेंस रखती है, इतनी शायद आपकी फॉरेन पॉलिसी ना रखती हो. तो इसीलिए प्रेसिडेंट के ऑफिस में एक अदारा जो है वो ट्रेड रिप्रेजेंटेटिव का है. Then another very crucial issue, environmental quality. इसको इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया प्रेसिडेंट के ऑफिस में, because the president is supposed to be a guardian and a patron of all this. So जो आम चीजें हैं, most important aspect of the country, offices pertaining to those issues have been set up as part of the office of the president. और environment उनमें जाहिर है एक बहुत ही important issue है. Then we have the Office of Science and Technology Policy. Extremely important. We know how technology has developed by leaps and bounds, and over the last few decades, it's been momentous. तो इसीलिए मेरे ख्याल में साइंस और टेक्नोलॉजी पॉलिसी को जो है खुद प्रेसिडेंट ने अपने ऑफिस में इंटीग्रेट कर लिया. ड्रग्स एक और बहुत ही क्रूशियल क्रिटिकल थी चीज, खास तौर पे अमेरिका की इकोनॉमी के लिए, क्योंकि अमेरिका सबसे बड़ी मार्केट है ड्रग्स की. चाहे वो मेक्सिको से आ रहे हों, चाहे वो कोलंबिया से आ रहे हों, चाहे वो हमारे इलाके से आ रहे हों. So it was also found worthwhile to have an office of national drug control policy within the office of the President of the United States. And the Office of Administration. The Office of Administration. This is supposed to provide control to support to the previous offices I have mentioned. It will give secretarial support or all kinds of administrative support. Maybe it will head on personnel for these offices. And also run the administration of the White House. So the Office of Administration in this context has not to do anything with the administrative system as such, the public administrative system. But it is supposed to be facilitating the working and functioning of all those offices which are attached to the office of the President, which are about a dozen or so, I believe. तो प्रेसिडेंट ने तमाम वो सब्जेक्ट्स, वो क्रूशियल इश्यूज इकोनॉमी के, कंट्री के लिए जो इम्पोर्टेंट हैं, एनवायरनमेंट के, साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी के, उनकी इम्पोर्टेंस को मद्देनजर रखते हुए अपने ही ऑफिस में एज पार्ट ऑफ हिज ओन ऑफिस ये ऑफिसेस क्रिएट कर दिए, ताकि वो डायरेक्टली ओवरसी कर सके उनकी एक्टिविटीज, उनको पेट्रोनाइज कर सके, और जिन चीजों को प्रेसिडेंट मुल्क का सुपरवाइज करता है या वो उसके ऑफिस का पार्ट बन जाती हैं, तो इन एनी केस दे गेट अ लॉट ऑफ इंपॉर्टेंस इन एवरी वे. Towards the end of today's lecture, I would go over what we have discussed before. We looked at the characteristics of the Constitution of the USA and we found that it was the first written constitution of the world. And we also found that it envisaged a presidential system for the country, as opposed to a parliamentary system, since both the systems are different versions of democratic setups. This written constitution also incorporated a Bill of Rights, which we found was an extremely important feature of the Constitution, because it bestowed the right of freedom, of life, of liberty to the people of the US, and their rights could not be infringed upon without due process of law. So the written constitution incorporates this Bill of Rights, and it also sets down the powers of the federation and the federating states. So there is this concept of what things can the states enact upon, what subjects can the federation enact upon, and what are the residual subjects which come up from time to time. These residual subjects are in the jurisdiction of the state, and the state is going to enact upon them. And we also saw that the Constitution envisaged bicameralism, which means that there would be two houses. Now, the two houses in case of the United States are the House of Representatives, which is the lower house, and the upper house, the Senate. And we found that the Senate was the most powerful out of the two. Why so? It was most powerful because it had a lot of power over the president. It is the Senate which confirms all key appointments which are being made by the president. This includes the judges of the superior courts, heads of departments, ambassadors, and other key personnel. So this is a very important function of the Senate, and it is in keeping with the concept of checks and balances which has been introduced in the Constitution. Since we have three organs of the government, the legislative organ, the executive organ, and the judicial organ, the American Constitution has instituted a mechanism whereby each of these organs has partial control on the others through various mechanisms or powers, and this brings in checks and balances. As we saw, the president can veto bills passed by the Congress, because without the assent of the president, a bill cannot be enacted into a law. We also saw that on its own part, the Senate can deny confirmation to a nominee of the president on any key post. This happens sometimes. And we also found that through the mechanism of judicial review, the Supreme Court can, the judiciary can declare any enactment made by the Senate or any rules and regulations made by the President as ultra vires of the Constitution, which means they are not in keeping with the provisions of the Constitution or the spirit of the Constitution. So this provides a lot of leeway and space for the judiciary to intervene and make matters better as they deem fit. So this great system of checks and balances, we found, was responsible to a great extent in the smooth running of the democratic system in the US. We also looked at this powerful office of the President of the US and found that so many powers were available to this single individual, who also happens to be the Commander-in-Chief of the military forces of the US. Sweeping powers in many ways are available to him. National security policy, foreign policy, the budget, economic matters, trade. He has a say in everything. He appoints people who are going to take these things further. So a very powerful person indeed. And the President, in order to be effective, has a lot of offices incorporated within his own office. The President's office is not just the White House. There are almost a dozen other offices within there which relate to national security, to foreign policy, to environment, to drugs, to trade and commerce, you know. All those important and critical areas in which the state has to take the lead. Offices pertaining to them have been established as part of the President's office. And these keep on advising the President in related matters all the time. And of course, there is the Cabinet, which the President heads, and also the inner kitchen cabinet, more intimate ministers and co-workers of the President who keep on advising him all the time. And this was the way in which we found that the President of the US, the so-called most powerful person in the world, functions and performs his own duties. Thank you.